Guys, and here to break down UFC 291, Dustin Poirier versus Gaethje 2 for the B.M.F title. Dustin Poirier, he's my favorite fighter in the UFC, so it's a bit nerve-wracking, this fight. I think both guys have a very good chance of winning. It really depends on what happens on the day, what happens during fight week, I think. But here's my breakdown for you. So the first fight was 5 years ago in 2018. That was in Glendale, Arizona. So I kind of wondered whether that was high altitude as well, because this fight is going to be at Salt Lake City at very high altitude. But Glendale, Arizona is only 300 meters in elevation, which I think is about 1,000 feet. So that's a little bit of elevation, but not really a considerable amount. So I think going into that fight, Gaethje was favoured to win. He was in his hometown. He obviously got off to a really great start with those leg kicks, and he beat up Dustin's leg. He didn't cripple Dustin though. Dustin sort of took it. He was a little bit, I think Dustin slowed down a bit, but he had very good endurance. He had a little bit more maturity. He was head hunting a bit. And watching that fight, I mean, I need to watch it a few more times, to be honest, to really get a good analysis. But I did feel like the commentary were a little bit biased for Gaethje. I mean, obviously I'm biased for Dustin a little bit because I'm such a fan. But I did think that they were making it sound like potentially Gaethje was having a bit more success than what he was. Dustin was head hunting a lot, and he really needed to just go the body, I think. And sometimes Dustin does that, I think. He just headhunts too much, where he could just finish the fight so much sooner if he went to the body and took the air out of those tires. So Gaethje was having a lot of success anyway, despite the bias shit. But he didn't stop Dustin with the leg kicks. He was a bit crazier. He's not as contained as he is now, not as measured. He was a little bit more careless back then, especially at the later rounds of the fight. Actually, I think I remember it was probably his first 5-round fight, or maybe it was the first fight where he went to the later rounds. There's a few eye pokes in that fight that could have hindered either fighter. I think Dustin got 2, I think Justin got 1. So it was an interesting fight. I think Dustin kind of caught Gaethje just because Gaethje, like I said, lost a bit of the focus later on in the fight, and just didn't have that same experience and maturity. They're the same age, but I think Dustin by that point had a lot more fights and a bit more experience on Gaethje. So yeah, that was pretty much the first fight. Okay, so now it's 5 years later. They're booked to fight again. They've both tried to fight for the lightweight belt twice now and failed. They've both lost to Charles Oliveira by submission. They are both very successful against other strikers in the division, and I think they've won pretty much all of those fights against other people that are, I guess, don't really have that jiu-jitsu threat. They are both fighting for their pride here. Both different sort of values of that, whatever that means. I'll go into that a bit. So this fight is in Salt Lake City, which is 1,300 meters. So it's very high altitude. I think it's lower still than what Gaethje normally trains at. I think this is a very big factor in this fight, actually. I don't think Dustin... I mean, I didn't go look at Dustin's record and see if he's actually fought at that altitude before or higher, but I do think it's really going to affect him, and if he hasn't really taken that seriously... I heard him say he had a altitude tent. I'm like, no, that's not going to help. It didn't help Leon Edwards. I just hope that he's really considered how people performed on that Usman Edwards card in Salt Lake City last year. How that really affected everyone, pretty much, except for Gaethje and Usman on that card. So Dustin is favoured to win the B.M.F title. He's minus 130. Gaethje is plus 110. I kind of wondered whether Gaethje might be a favourite just because I think he is a little bit hungrier than Dustin, and Dustin was planning to retire after he fought Oliveira, but he didn't get the outcome he wanted, so then that changed everything for him. But he was mentally done in that period of time. Obviously, everything hasn't really unfolded the way that he intended it to. They're both 34. Yeah, I think... Oh, yeah, they both had... so Dustin's probably had about 36 fights, and Justin has had almost 30. So Poirier is a few fights up in like experience. Apart from like the title fights, I do feel like Dustin's maybe had not harder fights, but higher pressure fights, like the ones against Conor. I feel like the fights against Conor helped him reach a new level of maturity, but they also took something away from him as well. Like he doesn't really need to prove himself anymore. Whereas I think Gaethje hasn't really had his moment where he's really conquered someone big before. Like I think this is his chance to really have that big win if he's able to get it. So looking at Dustin, he won a sub against Michael Chandler, whereas a few fights ago, Justin fought Michael Chandler and he went to a decision. So Poirier has finished his last fights, although the TKO over Conor McGregor doesn't really count because Conor was injured, but it looked like it was heading that way. Whereas Gaethje has decision wins. I think there's something to be said of that. Like I think a lot of that is also like circumstantial to the fights that they've had, but I do think Dustin's more of a finisher. I think Gaethje's pretty wild and crazy, but Dustin does have a knack to get fights finished. Whereas Gaethje, he's learned to fight smarter though. He's learned to sort of take his time, which can just slowly destroy someone. It's a safer way to fight, it's not a disadvantage, but it's just something to be aware of. So going back to Dustin, I think he's better at checking his leg kicks now. Obviously, I'm not an expert, still learning how to really identify all this stuff, but I do think Dustin's gotten a lot better at checking leg kicks, and I think that is going to take away the leg kick game of Gaethje to some extent. I don't know to what extent, but I really do feel like he's going to have success there. I think the team that Dustin trains with is very good at game planning against other kickboxing heavy fighters, so I do think they'll be looking out for that leg kick. They'll be ready for it anyway. Dustin is still a little bit slow to start for my liking, but that's why I'm such a fan. He likes to get beat up a bit and really like he just loves to be beat up and then just come back from having it looks like he's hanging on by a thread, but he just comes back, and I think that's just, he loves it so much that he's not going to change his style. It's what he's comfortable with. It looks dangerous, like it didn't quite work in the first fight against Conor where he just got knocked out, but I guess that's not really comparable to now, is it? I give Dustin a slight power edge. Maybe I'm just biased, but I do think that he packs a harder punch. I think Gaethje's a bit more, is brutal as well. I mean, Gaethje has bulked up and he will have a bit more pack in his punch as well. But I do think Dustin is. Everyone says Gaethje's the harder hitter. I think Dustin is. I think Gaethje can have a bit more killer intent in some circumstances, and Dustin has more of a finishing killer intent, but how do I explain it? It's hard to explain. Dustin is more open, like as a person. He shares everything. He shares his family on Instagram, and he sort of wears his heart on his sleeve a bit, and he shares a lot of his life and what he thinks of the world. Whereas I think Gaethje is very private and he's difficult to read. He keeps his cards close to his chest, and I think that Gaethje is the kind of person that will say one thing but actually intend another thing. So he's a bit more deceiving, Gaethje. I think he's harder to, it's harder to break down his mentality, apart from, it's very obvious that Gaethje has very strong faith in God and he's very religious. He has very, very strong will. Dustin has a very, very strong will. I don't know if Dustin believes in greater power, whatever, but he's so stubborn, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you believe in. If you have that willpower, then they just both have that. They're not going to give up. Dustin has his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Gaethje has his wrestling. My biggest concern with Dustin is that he was ready to retire because he assumed he would beat Oliveira and then he would retire and fly off into the sunset with his lightweight belt. His undisputed one, that is. That was a few fights ago now, or a couple of fights ago now. I wonder I wonder if Dustin has learned from that mistake. I wonder if he's thinking, and I'm sure he is trying not to think, but I could totally imagine him ideally like winning the belt and then wanting to retire again, like the B.M.F belt, that is. I know he says he wants to go up to welterweight, but who knows what he really wants. But it does make me question Dustin, just because he's proven himself. He beat Conor twice. Even though it wasn't maybe Conor in his prime, it's still a very big win, and it's the biggest win. They're the biggest wins of his career, and he will always be held in such high esteem just because of that feat alone. Whereas Gaethje still hasn't had that moment, and I really think that's what gives Gaethje the edge. And other people are saying it too. I still think, unlike Dustin, I think Gaethje is probably more set on the idea of challenging for the belt a third time. I mean, it must be hard to have motivation after failing twice, but I do feel like if either of them did have that motivation, it would be Gaethje. I still think he still wants that moment. He still wants that big moment in MMA. Even though I think winning the interim belt is pretty big, and in lightweight, I do think that stands for something just because Khabib was only fighting about once a year back then. Like, kind of makes them undisputed, arguably, but I still think that he just hasn't had that moment. Gaethje has yet bulked up a bit. Yeah, both have endless willpower. Dustin probably has a higher boxing differential striking. I think Teddy mentioned that. Teddy Atlas, that is. That's about it, really. For Dustin, I would like to see him not just headhunt. I would like to see him go for the body on Gaethje. I think that will really help him get a finish. But will he go for the body? I don't know. He might headhunt again. I think Gaethje needs to mix up his strikes with some knees and maybe use a leg kick to try and feint and set up a knee or something. And I think for Gaethje's team, they might want to try and get Dustin out in the first round before he gets going, because once Dustin gets going, he just keeps gaining momentum. Whereas Gaethje doesn't stop either. But it's really just a matter of who wants it more. It's a matter of what the weight cut's like for both of them. It's very hard to choose. Oh my god. So yeah, all up into this fight, I have been picking Gaethje to win. But Dustin's my boy, so I'm going for Dustin. I think he'll win somehow. Although, yeah, I think Dustin will somehow pull it off. Somehow. So that's my pick. Maybe Dustin by split decision or something like that. Gaethje, if he does get it done, I can see him actually getting it done earlier, even in the first round. May the best man win though. Yeah, I'm kind of not looking forward to it because it's gonna really suck if Dustin loses, but no shame in losing to Gaethje, so it'll be good. Alright, the co-main event is amazing, really exciting. We've got Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira, who's gone up from middleweight. I think the main thing in this fight, again, is whether or not Jan Blachowicz is still hungry. He's 40 now. I think he's still physically looking good, but mentally, I don't know whether he wants it as much. In his past couple of fights, he just made Ankalaev. I thought, that was a draw, but I had him winning that. I thought that maybe he just didn't have that same killer instinct that he has shown in other fights. I wonder whether he just doesn't have that same sense of urgency. And I really think it's because he's like I'm too old for this now. Part of him is like that. And would it be like that against Alex Pereira? I'm not sure. Might be different because Pereira is more of a threat. Like, he could knock you out cold. Whereas Ankalaev didn't really have that same threat. So that could bring out a better game in Blachowicz. And Blachowicz does love countering. We could even see him catch Pereira with a counter because Blachowicz is that good in the striking. Blachowicz has a black belt, first degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. Haven't really seen him use it a lot, and he got completely dominated by Glover Teixeira as well. Got subbed. I just think that Glover was on such a higher level, but I don't really think he doesn't really use his submission game. And Pereira, he's a brown belt, so he's not completely green, not at all. And he trains with Glover too, so that's going to really give him help. This is Alex Pereira's first fight in the light heavyweight division in the UFC, and it is a quick turnaround. Yeah, I really think it depends on how whether Jan has is inspired to fight Pereira. If he's not, then I can see Pereira somehow finishing him. I do think that Jan will probably be a lot more confident in this fight, just because he probably will be slightly bigger still. I mean, Pereira, he is big, but I still think that Blachowicz may have a little bit of weight on him for the grappling, that is. So yeah, this is really hard to pick because I really think a lot of it depends on Jan. I can see Jan winning. I can see him countering Pereira. I don't really think he'll go for a sub. I can see him countering him, which I know sounds really stupid, but that's my pick. Alright, so Tony Ferguson and Bobby Green. I completely forgot about this fight. I'm excited to see Tony again, but also wondering how is he gonna show up. So Tony is a big underdog. Bobby Green is minus 300. Tony's 39, he's almost 40. Bobby Green is 36, so he's not that much far behind. They've both had a lot of fights between them, probably about 60 odd or 70 fights between them. Tony has a slight reach and a slight height advantage. Sorry, a significant reach advantage. He's got 5.5 inches on Bobby Green, so that could help if he uses it. They're both coming off losing streaks, except for Bobby Green. I guess like his last fight against Gerald Gordon was a headbutt, no contest fight. I think the more I think about this fight, I feel like it's a very good matchup for Tony. I mean, it's not too far a drop where he has to fight like a nobody, you know, who's maybe easily beat. But it's still a nice opponent. That Bobby Green is so dangerous. He can be, but he's also had a bit of bad luck recently. He had that Islam Makhachev fight on, I think, a week's notice or something stupid. He did get knocked out by Drew Dober. He did look good against Gerald Gordon, but then the headbutt, how much did that play a role? I can't remember. Tony, he got KO'd by Michael Chandler. Look, if you look at Tony's record, even though he's on this 5-fight losing streak, he has been losing to really great fighters. I thought that he was getting a lot of success against Nate Diaz, but then he just made that mistake taking him down. He should have kept it on the feet. I can see this being a fun fight. I can also see Bobby Green just brutally knocking out Ferguson, kind of like Michael did, how Michael Chandler did. Can see that happening. I can see Tony somehow getting the knockout as well. I really hope Tony wins this, just because, you know, I think I just feel so happy for him if he wins, but I think Bobby Green also deserves to win, so it's tough. We'll see. I hope Tony wins, but I am probably picking Bobby Green to win by KO or some sort of finish, or if it goes to the decision, I can even see Ferguson winning. Although that doesn't really make sense, does it? Let's just hope that Tony shows up. Because Tony, he won that first round against Michael Chandler before he got knocked out. He has been a bit troubled recently. I think he just crashed his truck into some parking lot or something. I just hope he wins. But yeah, I am picking Bobby Green on that one. Lastly, Michael Chiesa plus 125 against Kevin Holland, 145. So Kevin Holland's been getting active again. Michael Chiesa's 35, Kevin Holland is 5 years younger, but Kevin Holland has had a lot more fights, probably 10 more fights. Okay, he's probably had a few more fights than Chiesa. Kevin Holland has a height and reach advantage, quite significantly a reach advantage, a massive reach on Chiesa. So Chiesa's going to want to try and grab a hold of Kevin, but I can't see Chiesa really having much success in grappling against Kevin Holland, because Kevin Holland's so wiry and he's still very dangerous in those positions. So I think this might be Kevin Holland's fight to win. Also, Michael Chiesa hasn't fought in about 2 years. He is coming off those 2 losses. He lost to Sean Brady because I think Sean Brady just out-muscled him, and then gassed in the 3rd round, and Chiesa tried to get the win, but he was too late. It was too late for him. I think Chiesa is a smaller welterweight that's come up from lightweight. Kevin Holland has come down from middleweight. Kevin Holland's going to have maybe a bit of a size advantage here. Yeah, and he obviously has that reach advantage. I think Kevin Holland, hasn't had favourable opponents like Hamzat. He was never going to win that fight, and he took it on such short notice. Stephen Thompson, I think he should have, potentially he could have won that fight if he had a different mindset. And he KO'd Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think this is Kevin's fight to win, just because I can't really see how Michael Chiesa is going to have more success in the grappling. Even though he's got the jiu-jitsu, I just feel like the body type matchup's going to be difficult. So they're my breakdowns. Obviously, I'm not breaking down Paulo Costa and his opponent because he's going to fight Hamzat now, which I think is great. It should have happened like a long time ago. Yes, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support so far. It's really cool and fun. Yeah, I'll try and do more breakdowns, but enjoy the fights and see you around the traps.